and welcome to Hannity. A ton of news tonight. We'll get it all in. It is 9 p.m. in our nation's capital, 9 a.m. right here in Hanoi, Vietnam, where the second historic summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un is now officially over. Coming up tonight, my exclusive interview with the president. We're going to take you inside this week's historic meetings, and we're going to cover also another wide range of topics: the fight for the border wall, Michael Cohen's testimony, the, quote, Mueller report that so many predict will be out next week. What is the Democrats' despicable and politically motivated sham of a hearing? We'll ask them about the Green New Deal and much, much more. That interview in just minutes. Now, without a doubt, one of President Trump's greatest strengths, in my opinion, is he's a good negotiator. He has a willingness to walk away from a bad deal. And by the way, it's a key principle in his best-selling book, The Art of the Deal. And if only the media cared to understand who he was, maybe they'd read it. And when it comes to North Korea, well, the president's mission has always been clear. That is the full, complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Now, the president has always vowed to walk away from anything else. He has said it over and over again, even over and over this week. And yesterday, he made good on that promise. Take a look.
We spent pretty much all day with Kim Jong-un, who is, he's quite a guy and quite a character, and I think our relationship is very strong. But at this time, we had some options, and at this time we decided not to do any of the options. And we'll see where that goes. But it was a very interesting 2 days. And I think actually it was a very productive 2 days. But sometimes you have to walk.
Sometimes you have to walk. Now, President Trump is not the first American leader to walk away from what is a bad deal. Time for a Hannity history lesson. Let's take you back to 1986. Then President Ronald Reagan, he walked away at Reykjavik with Mikhail Gorbachev. Democrats, the media, predictably attacked Reagan. But 1 year later, well, he got the deal that we wanted. That was good for the country. And a few years after that, the Soviet Union collapsed. And as we say, the rest is history. Take a look.
The implications of these talks are enormous and only just beginning to be understood. We proposed the most sweeping and generous arms control proposal in history. While we parted company with this American offer still on the table, we're closer than ever before to agreements that could lead to a safer world without nuclear weapons. We will not abandon the guiding principle we took to Reykjavik. We prefer no agreement than to bring home a bad agreement to the United States.
Look what happened. That's what leadership looks like. That's what peace through strength, that's what works. It's worked again and again. Appeasement, bribing dictators doesn't do very well, does it, with the Clintons and Kim Jong-il, or the Iranian deal with the mullahs and Obama's time. Now, at the time, Reagan, he was excoriated for not reaching a deal at Reykjavik. When he first ran for president, so many on the left suggested that Reagan was a California cowboy who's going to lead us towards a nuclear holocaust and economic disaster. In the end, just the opposite happened. In the case of Reykjavik, Reagan prevailed. The Cold War ended without a single shot being fired. The Berlin Wall came tumbling down. Freedom for millions won the day. And meanwhile, the appeasement, the bribery strategies that we see invoked by the left so often, Democrats now trying to lecture Donald Trump about, they were lavish with praise when you look at Clinton and Obama from the mainstream media. Clinton sent billions of dollars in resources to North Korea. He promised the American people this was a good deal for the American people. They still developed a robust nuclear program in spite of the money, the attempted bribe. Obama, as we all know, $150 billion in cash and other currencies, cargo planes right there on the mullahs of Iran front door. And now the deal is totally defunct. Iran never stopped pursuing a nuclear weapon, never stopped funding terror all over the world. And unlike these deals, President Trump is more interested in protecting the country than just having a feel-good signature moment based on what is at its core a hollow, unenforceable agreement that in the end would be meaningless. And you would think when the denuclearization of a rogue dictatorship is on the table, you would think that this is a moment where all Americans would want to back the president's efforts, hope that he can make a great deal. You would think they would encourage his efforts to make the world a safer, better place for our kids and grandkids. You would think that they cared about world peace. They profess to. No, that's not the case, because yesterday in our nation's capital, at the very moment, very day, the president was meeting with Kim Jong-un. Democrats, they scheduled a public hearing with former Trump attorney Michael Cohen in what was nothing more than a political stunt, a circus, all designed to embarrass the president during his crucial and historic trip to Vietnam. And naturally, the hate Trump media mob, they towed the Democratic line. Predictable. Look at last night, coverage on fake news CNN, conspiracy TV, MSNBC. It was an utter embarrassment. They ought to be ashamed, but they never will be. The president conducting this historic meeting, negotiating peace with North Korea, an extremely rare and important summit, huge, life-altering implications to literally millions and millions and millions of people. But the hate Trump mob media, totally obsessed with the congressional testimony from Michael Cohen, who we all know was just convicted to lying in Congress and will be headed to jail for 3 years. Now, when we were showing last night the images of the president and Kim Jong-un at this all-important meeting, well, fake news CNN, MSNBC, they barely covered this historic event at all. Look at this from Newsbusters today. CNN, NBC dedicated a whopping 428 minutes in primetime coverage to Michael Cohen. They spent only 12 minutes on the summit in Vietnam. Now, CNN and MSNBC, they pretend to be news organizations. They claim that they're objective. It's a joke, and they are just merely, as we've been telling you for a long time, an extension of the radical, extreme Democratic Socialist Party, which is why they echoed a claim from Democrats that Cohen, who they've all hated and said everything they can possibly say against this guy for such a long period of time, now he's totally reliable. Now he's their best friend. And in spite of all that has happened with the IRS and bank loans and so on and so forth, and lying to Congress. Watch this.
This was a blood, sweat, and tears kind of a thing. You looked at Michael Cohen. Part of the reason why the public is obsessed with him is because they all recognize a certain everyman quality in Cohen.
What Cohen also did is he gave us a picture, a believable picture of the man.
He seems to be well prepared. He's never lost his cool.
There's no question we're seeing a humbled Michael Cohen before this committee today. A lot of the anecdotes, a lot of the personal anecdotes have the ring of truth.
I actually was very proud of him. That's the best way I could say it. I was really proud of this guy up there because he's had the world against him.
Political stunt orchestrated by Democrats, hyped by the hate Trump media. Frankly, what happened yesterday was a disgrace. Now, you think they'd be more interested in the denuclearization of North Korea and the Korean Peninsula. You would think they would be more interested in the safety and security of all these people around the world, but they're not. I thought politics was supposed to stop at the water's edge. Well, at least that's what top Democrats told us when Obama was negotiating the deal that would give the mullahs of Iran that want to annihilate Israel and wipe them off the map and chant death to America, while he was negotiating giving those same mullahs $150 billion. They had a very different opinion. Take a look.
It's a cost to our reputation in the world that we get a new president and we'll find a reason to impeach him.
It's unprecedented for one political party to directly intervene in an international negotiation with the sole goal of embarrassing the President of the United States.
I think it's somewhat ironic to see some members of Congress wanting to make common cause with the hardliners in Iran. It's an unusual coalition. I think what we're going to focus on right now is actually seeing whether we can get a deal or not.
I could go through the long list of Democratic senators who supported President Ronald Reagan in his efforts to try to create a more peaceful world. Those were the days when there was a bipartisan approach to foreign policy in the United States.
Rank hypocrisy, what you just witnessed. We had 3 days now in a row of testimony, one public hearing scheduled on the very same day that the president is having the big summit meeting. Michael Cohen, in this particular case, was used as a prop for the Democratic Party. Why? Because their quest to malign and embarrass President Trump, that means everything to them. And what did we learn? Pretty much nothing new, except things that the Democrats and these so-called news agencies won't focus on. And Michael Cohen talked about there was no Russia collusion that he saw at all, no crimes committed by the president, and the Hillary Clinton bought and paid for Russian dossier was chock full of plenty of lies, lots of lies even about Michael Cohen himself. And what did Michael Cohen gain from this hearing? That the Democrats, he gained their friendship? You know, he gained absolutely nothing. No one who truly cared about Cohen and his family would have ever let him participate in this stunt. And as a result, as I predicted right here on this program, because of his testimony, now Michael Cohen is facing even more legal trouble. Today, Congressman Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows each sent new criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. One for Cohen not registering as a foreign agent, and another accusing Michael Cohen of lying to Congress yet again over this claim. As you will see, we'll let you judge for yourself.
You wanted to work in the White House.
No, sir.
You didn't get brought to the dance.
Sir.
And now?
I was extremely proud to be personal attorney to the President of the United States of America. I did not want to go to the White House.
Is there a chance
that he'll ask me to go to Washington?
Oh, there's absolutely a chance he's going to ask you to go.
I certainly
Would
hope
you
so.
go?
100%.
Michael Cohen, I look forward to seeing what your future is. Congratulations.
Hopefully it'll be in Washington.
Well, let me know.
I sure will.
You would think that Democrats that are so compassionate about people would recognize Michael Cohen and his family. They're going through hell an awful lot, and this is probably one of their lowest moments where they would exploit for personal political gain, setting him up for more legal consequences. It is beyond calculating. It's beyond shameful. It is frankly beneath the offices they serve, but they don't care. But what else do we expect from a party that cares more about making President Trump look bad than, say, rooting for a more peaceful world? This is what we've been telling you. This is a new, radical, extreme, socialist Democratic Party. We have now seen anti-Semitism publicly displayed, and we have seen power-hungry narcissists. Look at Congresswoman Tlaib, the poster child for the scary, new, radical, far-left Democrats. Seems to check all the boxes. Socialist. She associates with, Louis Farrakhan, people like Linda Sarsour. She hates Donald Trump totally. And at yesterday's hearing, falsely suggesting that Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows is a racist because he invited an African-American former Trump Organization employee to the hearing. And then right after she said it, she actually denied saying it. Look at this.
The fact that someone would actually use a prop, a black woman, in this chamber, in this committee, is alone racist in itself.
Mr. Chairman, there's nothing more personal to me than my relationship. My nieces and nephews are people of color. Not many people know that. You know that, Mr. Chairman. And to indicate that I asked someone who is a personal friend of the Trump family, who has worked for him, who knows this particular individual, that she's coming in to be a prop, it's racist to suggest that I asked her to come in here for that reason.
It was a pretty great moment, I thought, for Chairman Cummings and Mark Meadows after that. Now, the person she called a radical, racial prop, is now speaking out. Earlier today, Lynn Patton had this message for Congresswoman Tlaib. Let's take a look.
What I'd like to ask the Congresswoman from Michigan is, why does she take the word of a self-confessed perjurer and criminally convicted white man over a black female who's highly educated, rose up through the ranks of one of the most competitive companies in real estate? You spoke before 25 million people at the Republican National Convention, and now works in one of the most historic administrations in history. And so to me, that would be my question. That's more racist than being put up there as a quote-unquote prop.
Now, remember, this week, both President Trump and Democrats, they showed their true colors. This is a contrast. It's striking. On one hand, you have a leader working hard, tirelessly to negotiate a safer world, keep promises, and on the others, you have a Democratic Party nonstop scheming to smear, slander the president at all costs, no matter how many lives are ruined, how many people are besmirched in the process. Now, sadly, this is nothing new. It's a years-long political war. Well, frankly, it's gone on since he came down the escalator in 2015. And breaking today, in just a few weeks, we're going to learn more about how Democrats and their friends in the media, well, how well they worked to smear Trump in 2016 with the Clinton bought and paid for dirty dossier. Very good news tonight for those of us that want the truth out, because a judge just granted a motion in Florida to unseal documents in the Trump dossier defamation case against BuzzFeed, including a deposition from Hillary Clinton's foreign agent that used his Russian sources, Christopher Steele. Remember, in Great Britain, under oath, in an interrogatory, I have no idea if any of this is true. It's raw intelligence. This will be important and huge, so stay tuned. Okay, we'll have my one-on-one with the president. All of those topics I mentioned coming up, but first, joining us now with reaction to our other top stories, we have President Trump's Intelligence Advisory Board member, Dan Hoffman, Fox News contributor Dan Bongino, and The Hill's John Solomon. Before we get to you guys here, I want to start with John. You have an article out that, in fact, the Democrats who didn't care at all about Michael Cohen and hated his guts just a short time ago and said every nasty word about him, that they now have put him in a very, very difficult position.
Yeah, it's a lot more clear tonight that his legal jeopardy is real and potentially extensive. So we talked about it last night, Sean. Today I started calling around to people that worked at the transition and said, did Michael Cohen lobby or not lobby for a job? As of this hour, I've talked to 12 separate witnesses who claim that Michael Cohen repeatedly, incessantly lobbied for a White House job and complained when he didn't get one. They range from Dave Bossie, the deputy director of the transition, down to a pastor in Ohio who was a friend of Michael Cohen's, a guy named Darrell Scott, who was a friend and said, listen, I can't lie for my friend. He asked me several times to ask the president, could he have a job in the White House? This is the sort of perjury trap that the Democrats didn't want to set for their star witness, and I think it's going to boomerang.
And then we have the other issue. This is now two criminal referrals as a result of this. Serious issues, as Michael knows. And, you know, what bothers me, Dan Bongino, is they didn't care. They hated him forever. They didn't even think. Did they think about his kids? Did they think about his life? Did they think about all he's been? They didn't care.
No, they set him up for a FARA violation, which he's not going to be able to get out of because that's what they're charging Manafort with. What are they going to say? We're not taking that seriously? But, Sean, the biggest story, no question, that came out of it yesterday, ignored by everyone but this network, is the dossier is dead. The collusion hoax is over. And you know who killed it? Michael Cohen. They asked him point blank, have you ever been to Prague? For the folks at home, Prague is a central component of the dossier. That's where allegedly Cohen went to coordinate this whole scheme. He's never even been to the Czech Republic.
I knew that weekend where he was. I don't want to divulge private, but I knew.
Wait, can I bring up one more point, too? He said something else, too. He says, I overheard this speakerphone conversation, Roger Stone and Trump, about this WikiLeaks thing. Wait, I thought he was colluding with the Russians. Why does he need to hear it from Roger Stone?
The funny thing is, WikiLeaks said, yeah, that was all public information.
It's already been out there.
Yeah, had been out there for a period of time.
I just want to highlight a part of the story which I think has been underreported from my own background, was the extent to which the president used the information from the intelligence community, our intelligence community, to hold Kim Jong-un accountable for those nuclear facilities and the ballistic missile facilities. Without that, you know, maybe we do make a deal where we provide some sanctions relief in return for the lengthy process to tear down this Yongbyon nuclear facility.
Well, that's their biggest facility by far.
It is, but there are other ones.
That's the point.
And that's
the president revealed last night, we know where they are, which I thought was interesting.
Right. That's an intelligence success. That's how an executive decision maker uses intelligence effectively to make the right decisions to serve our national security interests.
I don't want to give away the interview, which we'll have in our next segment that we're going to start with the president, but I could tell you, obviously all those years and what he wrote about in his own book that the media would never even discuss, John Solomon, is that has been his philosophy. His entire career has been about, up to the last second, I'll walk. And he didn't care at all. He'd like to get it done. He wants a deal, but he'd rather have the right deal, the one that's real, rather than the photo op deal.
Yeah, that's right. Listen, I said last night, you're going to see what peace through strength looks like. And sometimes walking from the table is the sign of strength that gets you to peace. And I think last night, using the intelligence he had, not falling for a bad deal, that shows a president who is using all the tools at his disposal. You hear all these stories, he ignores the intelligence. I don't hear that from the people I talk to. And I think you saw yesterday how he does use that intelligence to make the best negotiation for the United States.
You know, Dan, there's another aspect to this, too, is, you know, somebody that's willing, okay, well, this is so important, I'll take a risk, and if it works, this is awesome.
Yeah.
If not, okay, well, we tried, we'll try again. But I think so many other people, they're like, oh, they don't want to go out on a limb.
Yeah, and you know what the
Why would
greatest
you go
part
out on
about
a
the
limb
whole
for
thing
safety?
was watching the media do a bootleg 180 on this. Remember yesterday they were saying, Trump's going to get suckered by Kim. He's going to take a bad deal. Then he walks away from a bad deal, and they're complaining.
Yeah.
Trump walked away from a... What story is it? Which one's right?
Oh, and I love the fact that, you know, Chuck Schumer is like, we wanted him to be tough. All these people that supported bribing Kim Jong-un's father, one, and the mullahs in Iran, number two, we're going to listen to them.
It's also just a good time to remember the multilateral efforts, the sanctions. Ambassador Nikki Haley led the way with unprecedented high level of just harsh sanctions on North Korea. And she got Russia, but she got Russia and China on board, and that's a hard thing to do in the UN Security Council.
All right, guys, you've been with us all week. Thank you so much.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you.
Thanks,
John
Brad.
Solomon,
Good to see you,
The Hill is where you get his articles. You want to see that? All right, when we come back, our exclusive, we had the only interview with the president right after the summit. He's going to reveal the insight into what was going on behind the scenes, and we'll talk about that. Michael Cohen, Robert Mueller, immigration, the new Green Deal, straight ahead. All right, as we can continue our coverage live, we're in Vietnam, where earlier today the president wrapped up his summit, his second summit with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Following the summit, we exclusively had the opportunity to speak with the president before he departed Vietnam. Here's part one of that interview. Mr. President, great to see you.
Thank you very much.
Summit number two, when I heard Kim Jong-un say, you know, was asked the question, are you ready to denuclearize? His answer was, I wouldn't be here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. And then he goes on, and you said that might be the best answer you've ever heard.
Well, and we're working towards something, but we didn't sign anything today. It didn't quite work out. I would say that I wasn't satisfied, and perhaps he wasn't satisfied. Good relationship, but I decided that this wasn't the right time to sign something. So we'll see what happens over a period of time.
It's funny, it came up on the radio show. We've known each other well over 2 decades.
Yeah.
The art of the deal. One of the key components in the book is you say you always got to be able to walk up to the last second.
Yeah.
Reagan, Reykjavik.
Well, whether it's Reagan, whether it's anybody, I mean, you have to be prepared to walk, and this just wouldn't have been good for our country. And frankly, he can look at it the same way. Maybe he can look at it the same way. But we get along really well. He's a different kind of a guy, and I just said, look, this isn't going to be working. So I have a feeling something down the line will happen, and it'll happen. It'll be good. But
and
this just wasn't good.
You said this isn't the deal.
Well, let's go with both. Let's go with both. I don't want to say it was my choice. It was something that he wanted to do, and I didn't want to do it. And I just don't think it would have been good, maybe for either of us. But we'll get something worked out eventually.
Can you give us any insight into where maybe the sticking point was?
Well, they wanted to denuke certain areas, and I wanted everything. And the sanctions are there, and I didn't want to give up the sanctions unless we had a real program. And they're not ready for that, and I understand that fully. I really do. I mean, they spent a lot of time building it, and that doesn't mean the world has to be happy. But I wanted them to denuke, and they wouldn't do the full. They wanted to do some, and I guess a lot of people would have said that's a great start, but I just didn't feel it was right.
Let me ask you about, last night you said, he said something at dinner, and I won't say it, I'll let him say it. Can you bring us into that dinner?
Well, no, I just think he's, first of all, he's a character.
He was laughing a lot.
And he's a real personality, and he's very smart. He's sharp as you can be, and he's a real leader, and he's pretty mercurial. I don't say that necessarily in a bad way, but he's a pretty mercurial guy. But he was talking to the press a little bit, and, you know, he's not big into talking to the press, but the press came in. Look, bottom line, I think he wants to get something done, but this wasn't the right time. And Vietnam, Hanoi, where we are right now, they have treated us so fantastically, so good. They've done such a great job. They're very proud of the job they've done, and they've really treated us. I mean, it's been an incredible 2.5 days.
You kept saying, and managing expectations, you said, I'm in no rush. I want the right deal. And the right deal for you is complete denuclearization that is verified and on-site inspections on demand.
It's a much tougher deal to make. Maybe it won't get made, but that's the deal that we should have. And you can't give up everything if you don't get that. Now, we could have done large portions, but you're not getting that. So we'll see what happens. Again, the relationship is very good. He likes me. I like him. Some people say, oh, you shouldn't like him. I said, why shouldn't I like him? I like him. We get along great. We'll see what happens.
Let me ask you about, let's go back to Singapore, where I had an opportunity to see you there.
Right.
And hostages were released.
Right.
Remains have come home.
Right.
And the interesting and most profound part of it was that no rockets have been fired over Japan.
That's
Guam's
right.
not threatened.
That's right.
And the continental United States was being threatened. Progress in that area?
A lot of progress, and it's a lot of progress not necessarily on paper, although we actually signed a very good agreement. It said no denuclearization. You know, we're going to have a complete denuke. I call it denuking, but it's denuclearization. And it was a document that was signed, and it was a very good document. The fact is that he also said he's not going to do testing, and he said that recently. And he said it again to me just a little while ago. He doesn't want to do testing. He's not going to do that. That's a big thing. No rockets, no anything. And I believe, you know, when he tells me that, I will take him at his word. But we'll see how it all goes. I think we had a very good 2 days, but I just don't think maybe either of us were ready.
When we come back, more of my exclusive interview with President Trump. We'll talk about Michael Cohen, the upcoming Mueller report, illegal immigration, the Green New Deal. Interesting comments on that straight ahead. All right, so during my exclusive interview with President Trump here in Vietnam, I did ask about the Mueller investigation, his declaration of a border emergency, the Democrats' New Deal. But first, I asked him about Michael Cohen and his testifying on Capitol Hill. Let's take a look. Two-part question. Number one, what do you have to say about things that he was saying? And number two, what about the Democrats? I thought politics stopped at the water's edge in America, but not today.
I think maybe more than anything else, the fact that they held it today, where I'm working on something that is very, very important for the world, not only our country, for the world, was really inappropriate. The Democrats, the hatred is so incredible, and they couldn't help themselves, and that's the way it is. As far as Cohen is concerned, he's convicted, he's a liar, he's defrauded at a high level. He's got a lot of problems. And, you know, it was very interesting because he lied so much. I watched some of it. I actually was able to watch some of it. He lied so much, and yet he said, when it came to collusion, the whole hoax with the Russia collusion, it's just a witch hunt hoax. And by the way, very, very bad for our country because it really stops you from doing what you're supposed to be doing. He said no collusion. And I said, it's funny, he lied about so many things, and yet he could have said, he might as well lie about that one too. But he said no collusion, and everybody said no collusion. Richard Burr, Senator Burr, said no collusion, Senate intelligence. The House has come up, as you know, the committee, Devin Nunes and all, they said no collusion. And yet it goes on and on. And
2 years.
It's two, yeah, I guess more than that.
But there was collusion.
It really was, look, when you think of it, it was really from the time I came down on the escalator with Melania. I came down on the escalator, and I think it started just shortly after that. It is a terrible thing, and hopefully people will get, because no president should have to have that happen to them. It's so bad for the country. It's a hoax. It's just a terrible witch hunt, and it shouldn't happen to another president. And yet, I think I've been the most successful. I think I've been the most successful president in the first 2 years of office. If you look at the tax cuts and regulation cuts and all of the things that you say so nicely on many of your shows, but you look at what we've done for the vets and what we've done for the military, $716 billion, and all of the things that we've done. I mean, it's been a tremendous administration, but we always have to always fight this hoax that's going on. It's a shame. It's a very sad thing for our country.
You know, I was kind of dragged in a little bit into the Michael Cohen issue. I interviewed him many times on radio and TV. He was never my attorney. He did apologize to me for his attorney saying that in court. But I can tell you personally, he said to me at least a dozen times that he made the decision on the payments and he didn't tell you.
Yeah.
Told me personally.
No, he did, and he made the decision. And remember this, he's an attorney. Whatever decision he makes, you're supposed to rely on an attorney to make a decision. Somebody said, one of the very good Republican members today said that, you know, he's supposed to be an attorney. He's out there doing all sorts of things. When you have an attorney, you're supposed to be able to rely on your attorney.
Attorney-client privilege?
But it's also called reliance. And he just was not much of an attorney, that I will tell you. But he went up today, and a lot of people thought he was very bad. I watched some of it. I thought it was a terrible display of dishonesty, actually.
I actually thought as I watched it, there's a criminal referral as a result of today by Congressman Mark Meadows.
Yeah, I heard that.
And maybe some inconsistencies. And I think the Democrats in that sense didn't care at all about Michael Cohen, who they were calling a liar a long time ago. The Mueller report, next week we expect it. Right. And based on Burr.
I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but right, based on Senator Burr and Devin Nunes and everybody else that's looked at it, including Michael Cohen, no collusion. And, you know, this was all about collusion with Russia, the collusion, delusion. And it's a shame, but it's just one of those things. You live with it, you win it. So I hope it's going to be an honest report. If it isn't, we fight it. Very strongly, we fight it. Because when you look at what happened at the FBI at the top levels with McCabe and the dishonesty, Comey and the dishonesty.
James Baker had said he thought Hillary should be indicted.
That's right, James Baker. He was another one that was dismissed. You look at Strzok and his lover, Lisa Page, and you look at what went on with that whole deal with the insurance policy. The insurance policy, just in case she loses. I will tell you, it's a very dishonest group of people, and it's. I've done a great service for this country by exposing it. When you look at what happened there and at justice, and they call it justice, but it hasn't been justice. When you take a look at what's gone on, I'm very proud of the fact that, you know, we've exposed a lot of people. It's like 12. Somebody said much more than that now.
Yeah.
And this is great dishonesty at a very high level. We can't let that happen to our country.
If we have equal justice under the law, equal application of our laws, and we had a Russian dossier to influence the American people against you, and then it was used to spy on your campaign through an associate violating his constitutional rights, we have a new attorney general.
Well, I think we have a great attorney general, I hope, and I think he's going to do a terrific job. He's smart, he's tough, he loves the country, and he loves the Department of Justice. He loves the Department of Justice and the FBI. And Bill Barr is, I think, going to be exceptional. And you need somebody exceptional because it has to be cleaned out. What's gone on there for years has been terrible. You look at Orr and Orr's wife, who worked for GPS Fusion, and they're the ones that did this phony report, the fake dossier. Boy, it's a hornet's nest. And I think that Bill is going to do a great job.
One last question. The immigration. You saw the vote in the House. You might lose some Republicans, but it doesn't look like you will.
We'll be fine.
You will veto it. It won't be overridden.
Yeah.
How much? I understand that there's about $23 million for all the other things that will be useful for border security.
But a lot.
And how much will you be able to have? You have the 1.375.
Well, first of all, we're going to be building over 200 miles of wall. I'm going to call it wall as opposed to barriers or slats. They said, could you call it slats or barriers? And we played the game for a little while, and then you just say, hey, look, we need border security. You can't have border security without a wall, and a strong wall. If you didn't have it in Tijuana, you would have people coming across by the thousands and thousands. And I will say this, whether it's ICE or Border Patrol or just law enforcement, they've done an incredible job at the border. Apprehensions, the greatest number we've ever done. You look at the number of people, but if we had a wall, we wouldn't have to apprehend. People wouldn't come into our country. Drugs wouldn't come into our country. The human trafficking is incredible, the number of people brought into our country.
Sex trafficking.
And they don't come through the points of entry. They come through in the middle of a desert where you have open space. So I think that really it's a very dangerous thing for people to be voting against border security for anybody, including Republicans. I really think that Republicans that vote against border security and the wall, I think, I've been okay at predicting things. I think they put themselves at great jeopardy.
In 10 years, the next president won't have an airplane. We may not have cows. We won't have a combustion engine.
Yeah.
Late, even during birth, abortion, 70% tax rates, everything's free. I assume socialism will never be in America, as you've been saying. What do you think of that crazy proposal?
Well, it's an incredible thing. I see senators that have been there for a long time, well-known senators, named senators, and I look at them and they're endorsing it. And yet, what are they endorsing? No, you look at it. You look at it.
Abortion during birth.
Yeah, $100 trillion, and you couldn't do it for that.
Yeah.
But it's not even the money. It's so ridiculous. No planes. Let's not fly anymore. It is crazy. But personally, they should go with it. I love it. It's one of the greatest plans I've ever seen. As long as they're the ones that have to sell it, not me.
Yeah.
So
You're happy about it.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what the rest of them are going to do. But already some have endorsed it. It's incredible.
Mr. President, we appreciate you being with us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, as we continue our coverage from Vietnam, by the way, I got an opportunity to ask a question at the big press conference. We'll tell you about that. Democrats embracing socialism, reaction to my interview with the president. Republicans are hitting back hard. Dan Bongino, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, and Morgan Ortegas will be here with us as we continue. Straight ahead. All right, as we just discussed with the president, the Democrats' hard left turn is under the microscope this week at CPAC. That's where, of course, young conservatives are being prepared for the coming fight against socialism. Take a look.
President Trump is providing leadership. He's kind of changed the whole psychology. I mean, we've gone from pessimism to optimism. Right there is a major change. He has ended the war on business. He has ended the war on energy. He has ended the war on success. So I'm here with just one simple ask. Please, join us to keep America great, and join us to put socialism on trial and then convict it.
All right, joining us now, nationally syndicated radio talk show host called America First, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, along with Fox News contributors Morgan Ortegas and Dan Bongino. Dan has been here all week with us. It was really interesting what the president said. Glad I don't have to sell that deal. No airplanes, cows, cars, gas, oil. Everything's free, but we're going to confiscate pretty much every penny you make.
Yeah, and I love that with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had that on her website, the FAQs, and then they ran for it. They said, "No, it's a Republican scheme." We have your website. That's like the Wayback Machine. You can look at this stuff. But, Milton Friedman used to say about government spending, socialism, what they're proposing. He'd say there are 4 ways to spend money, but the worst way is other people spending other people's money on other people. Because cost and quality never matter. That's government.
Liberals are always generous with other people's money. Morgan. And, I love this. And Nancy Pelosi, when we send cameras to her district, what do we see? Homeless people, homelessness, needles all over the place. We see feces because people don't have a place to go to the bathroom. But she's, hidden off in that enclave, gated neighborhood of hers. And I'm like, she's a multi-millionaire. Maybe she could build a homeless shelter right in her own backyard, and facilities and showers and food and maybe some addiction help.
Not a bad idea, Sean. I don't blame her. I guess her living in that gated community with what you just described in San Francisco. Listen, I think that this whole debate about socialism is really, when you take a step back, this is about who's leading the world order. And I think that this actually gets back to China. And with you being in Asia right now, I mean, you're sort of at the center of all of this. And the vision of a Chinese-led world is a communist-led order. It is not democracy. It's not freedom. It's all of the institutions in which the United States has led since World War II. The Chinese have an entirely different vision of that. So when we talk about socialism and we sort of mock the left or make fun of some of the more ridiculous proposals, I actually think on a very serious note, I look at a rising China and I think if we don't have the guts and if we don't have the gusto to confront them, then it's going to be, then this socialism discussion is going to be mute. We're going to see a communist-led world, and that should scare everyone.
I don't disagree at all, and certainly China, we got Russia, we've got Iran, we got a lot of problems in the world, Dr. Gorka, and that's what I like about the president taking it head on, one issue at a time. But by the way, simultaneously working on perhaps even Middle East peace, as many of these countries that were enemies aligning against Iranian hegemony.
Yeah, look, Sean, American leadership is back. I gave a speech this morning at CPAC where I said there are all these threats out there. We're going to deal with them. President Trump is dealing with them. But the biggest threat we face is socialism in America. And the left-wing media exploded. I called Ocasio-Cortez's Green Deal a watermelon. Green on the outside, deep red communist on the inside. And they can't take it. But that's the truth. When they want to control your health care, Sean, when they want to ban you from eating hamburgers and cheeseburgers, that's communism. And the 2020 election is going to be a very simple choice, Sean. It's going to be a choice between oppression and freedom. The stakes are not lower than that.
All right, well said, all of you. And Dr. Gorka, you were supposed to be here with us. I'm just saying, you turned us down. And Dan took it personally. Morgan, thank you. Dan, you've been here with us all week. Thank you so much. Man. All right, when we come back, our villain of the day, taking shots at this show. Oh, can't believe it. All right, our villain of the day, fake news. CNN's Don Lemon. All right, he's at it again. He's trying to find racism when there is none. He's done this before, making up conspiracy theories about Fox News and your favorite host. On his show last night, I met Don Lemon. I really actually like him in person. On the air, he's very leftist, but venting because he wanted to have Congressman Meadows on after Congresswoman Tlaib accused him of racism for bringing Lynn Patton to the Cohn hearing. But Meadows, he was booked on our show, we thought ahead, about a week earlier. Take a look.
What he's essentially saying is this president can't be racist because he's hired this black woman. That's not how racism works. And by the way, in fairness and truth, we asked Mark Meadows to come on. I wanted to hear from him himself to explain, to have a thoughtful conversation. But he went on Fox News with Sean Hannity tonight.
All right. I wish you could keep up with us in the booking department. No right-wing conspiracy here, and we're not trying to keep anybody off anybody else's show. Here at Fox News, we use something called foresight, anticipation. We knew the Cohn hearing was coming up. We booked the congressman a week ago knowing he was on the committee. All right, now for your viewer mail. Cindy writes, quote, "It takes a strong leader to walk away from the table. Maybe Kim isn't smiling so much on his long train ride back." And by the way, that's a great point. He needed an airplane. Somebody buy him an airplane. All right, this show, please tune in tomorrow night, and we're going to show you the question that I asked. I actually got asked the question by the president at the press conference, and I don't think fake news CNN like that either. Jason Chavis will be our guest host as we head on home. Let not your heart be troubled. Laura Ingraham. Oh, wait, you got into it with crazy Jim Acosta. What happened?
Well, he was all upset, I understand. I was just getting ready for CPAC and my speech and eating breakfast. Right. Then I hear he's all upset because only you and the Chinese and the Russians got a question. And then I'm reading, wait a second, didn't Forbes or NPR and a number of other outlets got questions, but not poor Jim Acosta. So we need to get a care package or something to get together. Bring some of that good seaweed, that dried seaweed you can get in Vietnam. Let's bring that. We'll send that to him. Some elixirs, maybe. I think he's having a hard time.
Mm-hmm. Laura, we're talk show hosts. We do news, we do straight reporting, investigative reporting, even sports and cultural issues and opinion. There's supposed to be news.
I do horoscopes, too.
Maybe on your radio show. Good for you. I heard you gave a great speech at CPAC. Is that true?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We had a good time. You have to tell some jokes and get out. That's my view. Tell a few jokes, get a few digs in, talk about how much you love America, and get off the stage. If I can do that, then that's always a good speech, Hannity. But you did a great job with the president. We watched. A great job. Get home safely.
Thank you. We will. So we're not leaving for like another 20 hours, then it's another 26 hours, but we'll be there eventually.
No, Hannity, I can't wait to see your scooter ride home the whole way.
Oh, wow. Well, listen, there might be a high-speed train built within 10 years.
All right, Hannity, thanks so much. I'm Lori.